I'm excited to be here with John Koenig. John and I had a chance to meet probably about a year ago or so, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit, and we go to some of the same groups, and I'm really excited to have him as a guest here today. Welcome, John.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was close to 2 years. We
Oh,
met at
2 years.
Louise Reincarnation Symposium, and
Yes.
I've been to two of those live.
Yes, Carol Louise Symposium. I'm looking forward to the next one coming up in October.
I am too.
I know that I had not, until probably about a few months ago, had a chance to read your book. And you have more than one book that's been published, I think, John.
Yeah, three. The first one is just technical for hypnotists, the hypnotic coach. I did that in collaboration with the fellow Daniel Rose in New Jersey. And then I did my autobiographies and an introduction to past life exploration for personal and spiritual growth. Or most recently, I did a Universal Mind Map Oracle meditation system.
Okay. All right.
Wait, I picked a card from a Oracle.
You did?
Okay. And what I picked was the first one. It's called the Mirror. And the premise is that these principles came from a search through AI of all human wisdom, psychology, religion, and philosophy, and 64 principles humanity has to master. And the first one we came up with was self-awareness, the mirror, and the idea that the unexamined life is as valuable as a life where you take a look. So that might be a good theme for today's book.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. You were born and raised in the New York City area. I believe that after a start in Harlem as a time of your
Harlem
birth.
Late one night. The only person colored like this and crying babies.
And then you and your family got a chance to get out into the suburbs there, out into Long Island. And you went to college, I think, out there in Long Island, correct?
Foster, psych major, English minor.
Eventually, after college, you did get a chance to work in really high-level advertising firm.
Yeah,
and
I was a madman.
Tell me, how did you get from Hofstra to that?
Well, there was an intermediate step. After my BA, I did a master's in Irish literature in Ireland.
Oh, right.
And so, there aren't many jobs in the want ads for Masters of Arts in Irish literature. I in psychology. I was going for another degree in Georgia, and one day I was teaching and freshman English, and I was not that academic. I got myself as being middle-aged and associate professor in a junior college in Iowa or something. And that night I was watching a TV commercial, and I said to myself, I could do that. I bet you get really good money for doing that. And I decided to do that. I went to New York, drove a taxi cab for a while, and I got a job at 625 Madison Avenue. And a few months later, I was writing national TV commercials. Eggs for shortening, Jeep vehicles. Wrote for the New York Stock Exchange for a while.
I mean, really, it's the big time. You went to the major leagues. Really.
I did, and it never occurred to me not to. If you're going to be an ad man, why not? Why not go to Madison Avenue? I found out later that 7,000 people had applied for my entry-level job. And so who knows how that... I believe in what I call divine serendipity. Where things happen according to our plan. And it was planned. And I got a really good education as a madman and advertising guy of simplifying things. When you're writing a 30-second commercial, you've got to condense the client's marketing plan to 30 seconds. And that has served me well in this kind of metaphysical universe. My book, my autobiographies, is an introduction to past life exploration. And I see myself as a bridge between people that are far more advanced than me. That you and I both know some of these people.
Yes, we do. Yep.
And I am not that advanced, but I can be a bridge between those people and their experience and people who are maybe just getting started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it must have been something to be all of a sudden you're in downtown and you're working in this top level firm. I mean, what was that like?
It was exhilarating and terrifying.
I would have thought so.
I wanted they wanted my job. The competition was incredible. There's a line in advertising, you're as good as your last ad. You know, you've heard these run to flagpole, see salutes. When they saluted, I would be great. I'd feel great. And when they didn't like it, I would not be great. But I loved it. Well, absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. And eventually you got a big, huge account in Rhode Island. Is that right?
I worked for a time in what used to be called West Germany. I did Procter & Gamble for Germany, and they wanted me to do P&G for all of Europe, based in Paris. For whatever reason, I chose to come back to the States, and I had a friend who was working in Providence, Rhode Island, and he hired me, and I became not a madman, a Providence, Rhode Island version of that. And then I started my own company, and I sold my company in 1999. And it was like, now what? Okay. Now what am I going to do? And back in the early 80s, I had invented something. I had Hypnovision Video, which was the world's first subliminal hypnotic video program series.
All right, hold on. Let's go a little slow there. The name of it, Hypnovision
Video. And it was literally the first hypnotic subliminal video. They always accused us as ad guys of doing subliminals. We never did it. Truthfully, nobody ever suggested or thought of it. But, I created this hypnotic video, a weight loss, stress, smoking. And I got an NBC and ABC national news. I got into every bookstore in the country.
That's so awesome.
It was very exciting. And I quit my job. My wife, Maria, was a stay-at-home mom. I had 2 kids, mortgage, and I failed financially.
Oh, no.
Well, I didn't know how it was possible. How can you be on national television and not get rich? Well, the answer is you can. People went out of business. I didn't get paid. And I didn't know what I didn't know.
No.
And I started a company here. I did industrial advertising. And that's really got the training in taking complex things and explaining them.
Yes.
Because I did training programs, product knowledge.
Oh, okay.
And, sometimes very complicated technical subjects to condense down. So a salesperson, for example, I did a program early in the 80s on neural network artificial intelligence. And I knew nothing about it. I worked with Nobel laureate Leon Cooper, and I had to train sales guys who were going to sell software, what it was about. And I think that served me very, very well. In my head, it's very complicated up here. I'm sure yours is very complicated as well. But to be able to bridge that and make it simple was my training.
Well, I found that a complicated situation is still complicated. No matter how you want to try to describe it, you have to try to break it into parts, or you have to somehow get a way, find a means to break it down so that when you're talking about it, the people you're talking to understand what you're talking about. And that is a huge, huge skill to have. And you were successful at it, obviously.
So I think, there are people that I'm sure Jim and I respect who are much, much, much more advanced than I am. And a lot of people have trouble relating to them because they can talk with certainty. The astral plane, the bardo. And I recognize a lot of people aren't that comfortable with it. So my book is an introduction to that.
That's great. And I really enjoyed your book.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. I know that Carol Louie wrote a great book, and she talked about, well, she's written several, but one of the ones that she and I talked about was that she had made sure to do the explanations like you're talking about, so that people could understand
the cosmology. That
yes, the cosmology that was really, really very, very clear. Now, at some point in time, John, I think you were interested in hypnotism for some time. Yes. Is that right? When you first get started in being interested?
As a madman, it was incredibly competitive, and every single day you have to have ideas, and you have to sell the ideas. And a friend of mine went to a hypnotist for creativity. Oh, okay. And he got great results. So I went to the guy and I got great results.
Okay.
Programmed myself to have ideas. I go to lunch, have lunch, come back, and there'd be 3 campaign ideas waiting to come out. So I took a training course at that time. I became a hypnotist.
Okay.
But I did it as a hobby. Well, I had been in Hypnovision Video when I took that and made it into a product. But then I went back into advertising. But I was always interested in the mind. Mm-hmm. What is it to be human? What is it? I never understood this stuff. Frankly, I never quite bought my culture. I was an inquirer. So psychology was natural. a lot of people who became psych majors, if any of those are listening right now, a lot of us want to figure ourselves out. We want to,
right.
we got something wrong. We want to, and I was no different.
Start right at home here and get that figured out. Not so easy. I know that in the hypnotism field that you have developed tremendous credibility there in hypnotism, and you've been a trainer for the National Guild of Hypnotists.
I think I've
right. You've been a trainer for
42, 43 hypnotists in my state. And, that was a great pleasure. People that want to make a difference in other people's lives.
Yes. Yes. And it must be a great feeling to get feedback down the road that, just like you had with coming up with a good creativity, that other people could have that same result as well.
Yeah, it's a wonderful profession.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we switch over to you not being the hypnotist, but you being the person that is working with the hypnotist in doing regressions. There are different types of regressions. And I think that you, at some point in time, did quite a few past life regressions. Could you talk about what is that? What is a past life regression?
Generally, you can do regression to go back to childhood. I would not do this without a licensed psychotherapist knowing what was going on, but take somebody back in their life and they relive something. And people typically need to relieve trauma. So you take them back and suddenly they find themselves feeling as if they're 7 years old. And they talk like that. If you have them write something, their handwriting looks primitive. It looks like a kid's. And past life exploration is you go past through their birth into first. I got started out of pure curiosity.
Okay. Right.
A friend of mine, his wife was doing this work. And I went to her just out of curiosity. I had no interest in past life exploration. I was more into things like Zen. And past life. And so I went to this woman, and suddenly I found myself in one of the lines in my book, Private Riley. And people respond to this stuff differently.
Yes.
People, it's like they're vague senses or they're observing. For me, it's like I'm there. And I introduced myself to this woman, and I felt my mouth twitch. I started to say Corporal Riley, but it was Private Riley. And he was a soldier, Revolutionary War, 1st Continental Dragoons. And he was a pretentious little man. He had a silk shirt, like some of the officers. And he wanted to be a big man. So I went through that life. And one of the reasons people do this is to get, like my card that I started with. I picked an oracle card to get more insights into their personality, character. And so I got in touch with my levels of pretension by being Private Riley. My sense is that in all of our lives, we have missions, we have assignments, and if you don't properly complete your assignment, you get another whack at it. Okay. So bring it into this life, that to work through. And it's a weird thing. Anybody who is pretentious typically feels they're really not as valuable as they want to present themselves. So I got in touch with that through, and I was cooked.
Let me stop you there. Was this in New York that you were doing the regression? Or?
This was Rhode Island.
Okay, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that when I had my first past life regression, I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
I didn't know what was going to happen. And for me, I wanted to, if I'm going to be working on a podcast that has to do with living, living going on.
You were invested.
I didn't want to be doing it from that guy says it and that guy says it. I wanted to have the experience of, hey, have I lived before? I want to see it. And so I had my regression and found myself in fear for my life because there were people that were coming to my home and they weren't bad men. They weren't soldiers or whatever, but it was a time of shortage and they needed what I had for their families. So even in the midst of this, for my first regression, I was able to say, hey, I'm not glad that you came in, and my regressionist indicated that she thought that perhaps I had been killed at that time. But, the deal is I had a knowing. I knew this is what was happening. For you, that must have been something I mean, you never would have imagined that your first regression would go into the Revolutionary War, or maybe you did. Maybe you were a real history
no, not
buff.
at all. I don't know.
Okay, isn't that interesting?
Reverse interviewing. What'd you get out of that experience? Did it impact or relate to your current life? You know, the experience of the guys coming into your house?
What did I get out of it?
Could you make a connection between who you
What
are
I
now?
got was that you have to look out for other people as well as your own family. My own family was happy and well fed and well taken care of,
Yeah.
but I hadn't done anything, and I was in my regression. I was a well thought of person as a hard worker guy. I had everything kind of under control, but I obviously wasn't very good with helping other people, and then they needed to come and take it instead of me offering it or giving it or helping. And so
How long ago was that, Jim?
How long ago was the regression?
Yeah, that you did.
I guess pretty close to the beginning of when I started with Carol Louie, because she was the one I did the regression with, and that was, I think, 3 years ago.
I find these things are subtle. In all the work that I've done, my life didn't dramatically change overnight.
Right.
That's your case situation.
Same thing, yeah.
But yet you grow a little bit every time you do one of these, I think.
So you had that regression with that lady there in Rhode Island, and like you said, you were hooked.
I really
right?
was.
Yeah,
and I wanted not for my practice. You know, I over the years, you know, I practicing full time from 2000 onward, and
full time as a hypnotist.
And I was doing smoking, weight, stress, sports enhancement, helping golfers, pre-surgery. I worked in oncology. So I presented myself as being a middle of the road kind of rational guy.
Right.
But over the years, I had maybe 15, maybe even 20 requests from clients. And I took clients back for different reasons. Sometimes they were just curious, sometimes they had issues. And everybody that I took back had a profound experience.
Yes.
Yes. And I got to be old in this life. I have to say, not to be morbid, but you know, I'm 76 years old. There aren't too many more turns around the track. So I stopped caring about the business aspect of the test. And I went public with my book, which I right here.
Sure, you would. Yeah.
And in a way I wouldn't have done when I was trying to make a living, because I got medical referrals. And so, you know, and that's my story. Basically, I do believe that everything happens according to plan.
Yes.
And I'm excited about life. I'm looking forward to more adventures, but in a different way. And I think you're probably similar, having retired from a...
Oh, yes. Absolutely. No. I don't know what's going to come down the pike, but I'm looking forward to every day, you know?
When we were kids, you thought of 65 as you're on the porch.
Oh,
in the rocker, and it's just not like that.
Oh yeah. Well, I do know that when my grandfather retired, people didn't live that much longer. Typically past 65.
Yeah.
So they just my grandfather just kind of hung around, you know, enjoying not working and gardening and stuff, and then he ended up living another 30 years till he's 95. You know, so
my dad was the same.
Yeah, he just didn't know what to do. So, but now we have a little bit different approach on it. I want to go into some of the other lifetimes that you experienced, and one that I thought was really interesting, and one that you indicated that you identified with, was the shaman.
My shaman.
Could you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, people do past life investigations for different reasons. One reason is pure curiosity. Another reason is they want to solve a problem. Sometimes people want to know, was I with this person? Did I know this person before? But people also go through it as part of their spiritual path.
Yes.
And I found myself as this beautiful, beautiful African shaman in a time before Christianity had entered, Africa. And what was beautiful about it, I did everything right in that life. Everything. I had the right paint, right feathers, the right rituals, and I didn't know if any of it was real. My father had taught me how to do this. His father had been a shaman.
Okay.
And I had this incredible experience. When you do past life work, you go through a couple of different scenes in that life. One of the scene was I'm working with the chief of the village, and he's sick. And I'm doing everything right. Full stops, the right rattles, the chants. And I have no idea if any of this is real. And he gets well. And I am as amazed as anybody. Look, because there was some risk there. But I was just amazed. And I had no idea how it happened. But that is the life I think I bring most into this life. Inquirer, searcher. In my lives, and I've told you this, before we started, I don't really know and couldn't swear that any of these are real. My conscious manufacture. In Richmond, they have University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies working with Ian Stevenson. And Ian Stevenson and his followers don't pay much attention to people like me or you who have been told.
Right.
Because you can be corrupted. Your imagination can't intervene. So
they stick with facts.
Or facts. Verifiable facts. Which, by the way, to me, absolutely prove that reincarnation is the way the universe works.
Right.
You agree?
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I don't know why he's
remembering their former lives, and they verify every aspect.
Verified cases. To me, to be skeptical about that, it means you haven't read the work.
Right.
And what he calls it suggestive of reincarnation, because he's an academic. But anyway. So nonetheless, though, I feel that my lives were real. I wouldn't swear to it. I feel they're real. And the shaman is the one that, that I love thinking about. And I think you can bring their energies into this life as well.
Okay. And I want to talk about that a little bit later on towards the end of our day today. And another really interesting one was a Christian scholar and monk in 15th century Cologne, Germany, Brother Thomas. Yeah, what's up with that one?
Well, that's interesting for your listeners here, because that's typically why clients come to me. I had an emotional issue. I got a bad Yelp review, somebody I had never worked with, and I went a little nuts. I obsessed about it. And I talked to friends about it, tried to talk myself out of it, couldn't work. So one of my trainers was a fellow I mentioned, David Quigley, in Santa Rosa, California. And I had done his past life training. So I called him and we did a past life regression. And I find myself as this monk in the 15th century in Germany. And I loved my life. I was academic. God and I were on a first name basis,
Kind of like the shaman life, too. Everything was going great.
It was like the shaman with a difference. The shaman was open-minded and questioning. Brother Thomas believed. He was a firm believer, teacher of canon law and theology. And I taught in this monastery, and I had these students. And so suddenly I'm Brother Thomas, and I go there. I felt the coarseness of his cloak. I felt the unevenness of the stairs in the monastery going down to my classroom. And one day I get this student, doesn't want to be there. And he disrespects me. It turns out he is the nephew of the bishop, local bishop. And in those days, nephew meant he's the illegitimate son.
Even more so than your brother's son or whatever, your sister's son. Person.
I complained. I complained to the abbot. And the abbot, I was naive and I believed it all. Now, the shaman didn't believe anything. Brother Thomas believed everything. And so I thought my abbot would back me up. He was political. He told the bishop calls me on the carpet. I lose my job.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I hang myself. I was in despair. I experienced this horrible feeling of everything I believed in was gone. And I was working in the kitchen. And that nobleman, the illegitimate, would bring his friends down to laugh at me.
Oh, that's harsh.
It was harsh. So I go out and I hang myself. And you mentioned that Carol maybe thought you died in that. A lot of past lives that I recall seem to be violent deaths.
Yes.
They seem to be true that demand to be experienced. So anyway, I came back into after the session, and I still wasn't happy about my bad Yelp review. But in this case, the change was dramatic. Right. The upset was gone. I had processed it out 4.5 centuries after the fact.
That is wonderful. So it really was therapeutic for you. You experienced that yourself, the benefit of it.
And that's available to people. One of the things I wish is that psychotherapists would refer to us.
Yes.
When you're stuck, I've had a number of clients who've been in therapy their whole lives, more or less,
Yeah.
and they're either plateaued or they've gotten nowhere. In one session, I've had a number of clients like that, and suddenly the problem's gone because they had brought a past life problem into this life.
Right. Right. The woman afraid of water sends a picture the next week of her driving the boat, that kind of thing. It's just, wow. Yeah.
I would say it's not the first place to look. A lot of people, this past life thing you can use as a way to avoid looking at your current life. I mean, most of the problems you have, at least you can get relief from going back to what happened when you were, 0 to 7. But in some cases, you can't. It'll won't.
Right. It's beyond the current lifetime, and very hard to, without going into the regression, you can't conceive of it. I mean, how could I know that I was in a place of famine or whatever
you experience the emotions of it.
I had the emotions so strongly that, I mean, I've had fear before, like you're on a roller coaster and you're like, oh boy, what's going to happen? But this was a whole different thing. I felt it before. And that really cemented the idea that, that to me, this was a real step back into a previous life.
I know what you mean. It feels, I imagine, I don't know, do you believe absolutely this was real?
Well, see, I have a different slant on it.
I
I do believe that it was real. And I noted that in your book that you didn't go that step, but you're not dismissing the importance of the regression.
I live as if it's real.
Okay.
But I wouldn't swear to it.
Who said you're not an academic, John Koig?
The thing about it is that in some ways, truthfully, it doesn't matter. My clients have gotten tremendous relief out of past life exploration.
Yeah.
Doesn't really. What do you do if you prove to yourself out of curiosity that past lives are real? It's an interesting cocktail party conversation. But if you get relief on something that's you're struggling with, that's
huge.
Huge.
That's huge. I'm going to need to finish up for this particular episode, but I'm going to ask you to stay and maybe we could do another episode. Would that be okay with you?
Sounds like fun.
All right. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, John, thank you so much. And we'll come back and do more.
Thank you for having me.